Welcome to the February 16th, 2016 Board of Selectmen meeting. Just remind everybody, as we do each meeting, that this is being recorded. And also, as we do each meeting, we want to take a moment of silence and appreciation for our brave servicemen and women that are serving around the world, especially in trouble areas of the Middle East. Okay, and I thought, wearing my town historian hat, this Sunday will be the 340th anniversary of the attack on the town of Medfield in the King Philip War. Nothing in our history ever came as devastating as what happened back on February 21st, 1676. And I like to think sometime the selectmen at that time, we had 5 selectmen at that time, Henry Adams, John Metcalf, John Harding, John Ellis, and George Barber were the selectmen. Half the town was burnt. 32 houses were burnt, including the outbuildings. 14 of our citizens were killed in about a 2-hour period early that morning. 2 soldiers that had been sent here to help protect us from Boston were killed, one from Cambridge, and one teenage girl, Mary Thurston, was taken hostage, never to return. We never found out what happened to her. So back some 340 years ago, the selectmen had their hands full, certainly on that date. So just to make note of that as well.
It would have been a big percentage of the town's population, I would think.
It was, and the 32 houses would have been, we had about double that, so literally half the town was burnt. And just the sheer horror, there were 5 garrisons in town, so many people would stay in the garrisons. Others would flee out of their house once they were set on fire. And just the sheer horror and just the, imagine coming back and seeing some of your children killed, your house burned, all your belongings gone. So a lot of history in the town, but certainly, you know, they say Hawaii will never forget something like Pearl Harbor, and certainly New York City on 9/11, and I would think the February 21 date certainly has its mark here in the town of Medfield. So little history moment there before we start. We have Medfield resident Abby Marble that's asked to come before the board, and she wants to discuss the concept of increasing the Board of Selectmen from 3 to 5 members. Abby, could we, as you go up to the podium?
Good evening, everybody. I want to make it very clear that I have no problem with any of the decisions and the amount of work you all do. I am truly impressed and overwhelmed by the amount of efforts that you all put in. But, as you said, 325 years ago, we had 5 selectmen and 64 houses, because 32 was half. So 64 houses, 5 people per house, rounding, 300 people in town. How many do we have now? And we're being represented by 3. And again, nothing to take away from the work that you've done, but you know, you have a lot of responsibility. And I think that our town has grown, the responsibilities have grown. We've got a lot of huge decisions on the plate from the state hospital, which will probably be a big decision for the next 10 to 15 years. We have a lot of boards you oversee, you hire, the town administrator, the police, there's so much. And I think that as a person who of, you know, fairly average intelligence, a fair amount of experience, I am intimidated to think that I would be part of your selectmen, because I would always be a deciding vote. Whereas if you have 5, you have the ability to have a little less pressure, but as much influence. I think there are, you know, I can go on and on about different reasons why I think it's fair. I mean, you have to stagger your vacation. I mean, I don't even know all that you do and all the family compromises you make to be here. But I think that as our town grows and responsibilities grow, and so you can keep a better eye on some of these things as a group, I think it's time. That's, I don't know how to go about it, whether a change in the charter needs to be made, how that happens. But I don't really know where to go from here except to propose it to you.
Let me just add a little bit, because I actually had proposed a town meeting article for last year to do just that. To
Wow.
increase from 3 to 5, and the moderator asked me to withdraw the article with the feeling that it just needed a little more study, and he wanted to, look at that in some greater depth. Part of my concern is with the open meeting law. And the open meeting law says if two of us get together, we now have a quorum, which means we have to post a meeting. So if I see Mark over in Brothers, I can't start talking about, geez, we could do the sidewalks or the state hospital, because now we're in violation of the open meeting
Right,
law.
right.
I didn't post that meeting, that I was gonna meet him over there. And if you did have 5, then you could have that 1-on or 2-on-1, 2-to-2 discussion, and you would not be in violation of the open meeting law. And I found, because I was on the Board of Selectmen back in 1980, 1983, before there was the open meeting law that covered that, so I've seen both. And it's just a lot of things, right now, in my mind, we have to wait, because we can't discuss any of this until right now. And then a lot of times, the meetings get dragged on because we've never discussed it before, and we're discussing it really for the first time, where if I could get on the phone, and I understand why we have the open meeting law, and I think it's a good thing, so that people aren't wheeling and dealing in the back
Right,
room
right.
and making plans. But just to have discussion, look, this is coming up, and I just think it would speed things up. So part of the reason that I thought we should go to 5 was because of the open meeting law was my more concern. Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, but you would have to have a change in the town charter, because we say we have 3 members, and it probably needs a little, I think I agree with the moderator, which is why I withdrew that, some study of what we would have to do and the proper way to go about that.
Yeah, I believe you'd need to elect a charter commission, and then the charter commission would have to come back with a report, and the town meeting would have to vote to put that report on the warrant for an election, and it would have to be voted in election.
So you couldn't have an article on town meeting change it without a charter commission?
I don't believe so. I'll check with town council, but there's a couple of things, and I believe the composition of the Board of Selectmen is the one that you cannot do by just putting an article on. But I'll check with them to make sure on that. So,
Mark or Pete?
yeah.
Well, couple things, I guess. One is, I'm kind of a firm believer in if it's not broke, don't fix it type of thing. And I think that town works very well with three select persons. I have not worked in Medfield my whole professional life. I've actually worked in a bunch of different small towns that are just a little bit bigger than Medfield in the Boston area for the last 38 years. And because of the nature of my job, I'm also involved in a lot of community outreach and organizations in each town that I've worked in as part of my job description. And those towns have 5 members, boards of select persons. And my personal experience I've seen is that it does not work. It's a much more inefficient way because you've got 5 people. It's harder to get 5 people many times to agree on a course of action. It tends to be more divisive. You get a lot of 3-2 votes and stuff like that, and then so you've got like, all right, well, it passed, you've got the majority, but now you really get like 2 out of the 5 people that really aren't happy with the direction you're going. So just my personal experience that I've seen observed over the years in towns that have had 5-member boards, it tends to get more political, and you tend to have people that run for that on a one-item agenda or ticket, you know what I mean? They're like a one-trick pony, so to speak. They get on for a particular thing, and then they get their concern taken care of, and boom, they're off, within 3 years. So it just tends to, that's just my personal experience that I've seen from other towns.
Or I think our school board has 5, and our council on aging has 5.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to, I know I've observed more school board meetings
Yeah.
than I
Yeah.
care to remember.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think I run pretty well.
Yeah, like that, that's just what I've seen in towns, because the selectmen, select persons tends to be more political. It can be more of a political thing, and we're very lucky in this town. Politics don't really enter it at all, which is, we're very, very fortunate. Everyone that has ever served here is always thinking of the town's best interest, which is fabulous. We're very, very lucky, because other towns, it tends not to be.
I think it's the
It's more
nature of this
divisive.
town. It's a pretty special town,
Yeah,
in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious, do you all have full-time jobs? I mean, you're doing a selectman's job and a full-time job at the same time? That's like overwhelming
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, I don't know if it would make a difference, if you have 5 versus 3, you still have to come to the meetings, it isn't like you could
True,
bow
but
out.
I know there are other things, yeah.
Yeah. So,
I don't know.
my
I would be
thoughts, yeah.
very interested in, and you're putting that on your
Well,
charter
well,
committee.
sometimes they, if there's 5, kind of assign certain selectmen to certain departments, and like Medway, I was talking to them, they have 5, and Walpole has 5.
Needham has
I believe.
5, I know.
Needham. And they divide up so that, in theory, that there's less work, rather than 3 of us doing everything, they divide it up more.
Kind of like the warrant does.
In theory, they focus on one thing, but Pete, your thoughts?
I don't have any firm feelings about it one way or the other. I've never seen the 5-member board in operation. I know that I talked to Dan Matthews, who's a selectman from Needham, and I don't remember how we got onto it, but what I remember was his comment, which was that, oh, you'll want to go to a 5-member board, so that based on his experience, that he thought that that Needham worked really well with a 5-member board, but we should ask Denise Garlick, because she was on their Board of Selectmen as well. I'll do that the next time I see her. I think it's certainly something worth exploring. I think getting a couple more people involved in the political process in the town's a good thing. I think that table could be big enough.
Yeah. We still do have a charter and bylaw study committee, although I don't think they've been meeting too much lately.
No.
And I just quickly grabbed the charter. A charter revision including the term or number of selectmen requires a charter commission elected at an annual election.
Yeah, so
So you would need to form a charter commission. People would have to run for that. And then any amendments to the charter would then have to be acted upon by ballot of the whole town at a regular or special election. So I think it's a 2 to 3 year process.
Because it's a big deal. It's a big deal, so they want to make sure that obviously there's a lot of steps in it,
Makes
which is
sense.
true.
I know that
Okay.
I know the other thing that Mike and I talked about at one point that because I thought that we were going to go forward with the Charter Commission. I thought it was one of those things that it made sense to do every 10 or 15 years, and I don't think we've done it for
I think-
more than
I
15
think your
years.
charter
by the
says-
charter, you're required to do it every 10 years, and that's why you set up the Charter and Bylaw Committee. You didn't feel it was necessary at that point to go to the full Charter Commission. So you.
Because I know that when we talked about it at one point, Mike, you were saying that there are other things such as the town clerk being elected instead of appointed that we might want to look at as
That
a
I think you
change
can
as
do
well.
with it. There are very few things you need the Charter Commission for, and that's why I recall those were the things, changing the number of selectmen but it's most things you can do by a town meeting vote.
I mean, we might want to look at the date of the annual town meeting. I know a lot of people have suggested that we should have it on a Saturday instead of a Monday night. We might,
That you
look at
could do. We actually looked into that, and there was some objection from some religious groups that it would interfere with their religious services.
Well,
They wouldn't be
I
able to.
mean, that's the problem. No matter when you do it, you're going to bump into some people. Someone
Yeah,
came to see
sure.
me at my office hours a while ago who's said that some of the people work in the evening, so they can't get to the annual town meeting because they're working in the evening. But, I mean, somebody's going to be working anytime you pick.
Yeah.
I think it might make sense to look at having a charter commission and just considering what things, take a look at it. It's probably one of those things that we should do on a periodic basis and see if there are things that it makes sense to revisit.
Well, maybe it would make sense to try to get the Charter Study Committee and Bylaw Committee and see what their sense of it is.
Yeah.
Maybe ask the moderator to come in and where he's, I know has an interest in it.
Yeah.
But it might be good. There are a lot of, I mean, there's certainly things that we could take a look at, but
I've always wondered about when we have our town election, whether it wouldn't make sense to have that at a different time. I mean, having been reelected by an election where 87 people voted one year, it struck me that it would make sense to have it at the same time as a state election, so that we could have more people
I
get.
believe the way it works, towns have to have it in January, February, March, April. They have to have it the first part of the year. Cities must have it in the fall.
Oh,
I don't think you can, I think that's by state law that
yeah, well,
the time period you can have it. I'm not sure about that, but I'm pretty sure that, because I don't know of any towns that have their regular town meeting in the fall. They're
Yeah.
all in the spring.
Right, yeah.
Now,
yeah. Well, and that makes sense, because you need to set the budget.
Right, because you don't have,
So-
because you don't have any numbers yet to try to set the budget.
well, I think
yeah. It's-
originally it had more to do with, they weren't planting crops or harvesting crops in the fall.
Fall.
And so in the winter, they had time to attend meetings and
Tend to,
spend time arguing. I think it goes back, but because when I first came, the town was on a calendar year budget,
Okay. yeah.
and it was around 1983 or something, 1984. They switched to a fiscal year budget. So before, it actually was kind of a little strange because you would start your budget year January 1st, but you wouldn't vote your budgets until April.
Spring, yeah.
So almost half the year was over by the time you voted your budgets.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
that was very strange.
So to answer Abby's question then, if we ask the Charter Review Committee and the moderator maybe to come in and
Yeah.
kind of get a sense of where they're coming from,
Yeah.
then if she wanted to continue with that, you would have to have a Charter Commission elected in the following, it would be a year from, it would be in 2017, correct?
If you
Um,
during the town
And
election.
then they would meet and they would come up with a set of recommendations
Yeah.
and report to town meeting?
Yeah, so you can form a charter committee like you have now, a bylaw committee, to review some of the things such as the date of town meeting, those kind of things. But anything relating to, if you're gonna go from an open town meeting to a representative town meeting, or to a change in the composition of the Board of Selectmen, requires an elected charter commission.
So they'd have to
so,
run for office. yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
I know, actually Framingham is doing this now, and they have had a charter committee for the last year and a half, looking at whether or not they wanted to go from a town manager to a mayor form of government.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Once they started to make those recommendations, this ballot on March 1st actually will be electing elected charter members to make that move forward. So
Does it state how many charter members there are, or who sets the numbers?
it does not say. We'd have to ask Mark for an interpretation.
Okay. Seems to me the last one, there's quite a few people on it.
I
Yeah,
think
it
they
doesn't.
do,
It doesn't
yeah.
list
Nine
a. It doesn't
members or
list a
something.
number.
I think you'd probably specify that in the article, I
Yeah.
suspect, but I'm not sure.
I think Framingham has 38 people running, and there's at least 13 seats.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seems to me there's a lot on that.
Yeah. It seemed you'd want to have a big group
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
You'd need a big group, yeah.
So it sounds like, to answer your question, if you wanted to pursue that, I guess we would have to have the Charter Commission elected. The quickest you could do that would be March of 2017. Then they would have to study, make the recommendations, and then the following town meeting in April of 2018, the citizens of Medfield would actually vote on that. But to begin the process, you'd have to begin that now, and I think Mike's suggestion, in my opinion, is a good one, to bring in the committee that's looking at all the bylaws right now, and the moderator who's in charge of town meeting, and was the former chairman of that, and just bounce that idea off of them and see, you know, how they feel about that.
So would I meet with them, or would you meet?
We we certainly would invite you,
Okay.
and they would come to the selectmen's
That'd be
meeting,
really, okay. That would be
and then
very
you could
interesting.
speak and ask questions, and they could respond as well.
Okay, sounds
So
good.
if that sounds like a way to go, we can certainly invite them in.
Great,
Excellent.
great. And see if it, yep.
So can we do that in the next maybe couple of meetings and ask?
Yeah, I think we have a bunch coming in for the March 1st meeting, so maybe the second meeting in March might be a good one to do it, yeah.
and
If no
then-
serious action needs to be taken until a year from March, I don't want to put any pressure on your warrant, your budgeting and your town meeting and all that. But I would be very interested to not lose sight of this as an opportunity, and,
Well, it might be something maybe over the summer, when the agendas tend to be less full.
okay.
Yeah.
That might be a good, it may be, well, the downside is that a lot of people go away, and it's hard to get members sometimes coming in on this committee. but-
Sometimes if you appoint the committee before the summer, and then, so they're ready to go when they get back in the fall.
Well, you have a committee
rather than-
already,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you have the basis for it. I don't know
Right.
whether they'd want to continue serving as a full charter committee member or run for election.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to kind of look over what's coming
Sure.
up and get a
Yeah.
date that maybe would be good for them as well, and?
Yeah.
Good with Scott, I think, to have
Yeah,
Scott help.
Yeah,
I think you should ask council to give you a timeline and a brief as to exactly what the steps are in that process.
and then Evelyn, would you make sure whatever that is, that Abby gets contacted, so she'll know when that meeting is?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Coming in.
your, yeah.
Appreciate
Good
that.
idea. Thank you,
for all the
Abby.
work you do.
Thank you.
Truly.
Okay, we have old business, and we have discussion of sidewalk construction priorities. And I think everyone has looked at the recommendations from Superintendent of Public Works, the Superintendent of Schools, and the Police Chief, who made recommendations. And did you get a chance to look over what your priorities were?
Sure, yeah.
Mark, what did you have?
Well, I guess my recommendation would be for us, just first of all, we can decide what we want to do, is maybe just to pick a couple for this year. It's, I know Ken's got like 6 on his list, and that's great, but, we're not doing 6 in a year. It'd be better if we could just pick something a goal that we feel we can achieve, and that Ken can do, and this, DPW can do.
Yeah.
So, Metacomet, right, I think we all have been talking about is kind of.
Right, and I think he's got it pretty well in the
Zeroed in on
works. I
that.
think it was
He's
one
feeling, at least he's telling us that could take place this spring.
Yeah. I think there was, last time I talked to him, there was one little easement he needed for a corner,
Mhm.
but other than that, I think he's all set to go on that.
That I think is, and that'd be terrific. And I know we talked about the little section on Dale Street, right, the connector, if at all possible. I think that would be something good to look at,
Yeah, and he's been talking to somebody who was thinking of looking into buying some of that property, and said if they did, they would take the trees down.
Go ahead.
And then I just think, and then Adams Street, I think we, talked about stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I know Ken had really wanted to try to see if he could.
Adams would take a number of years. I think Ken said that he could do with what he already has for layouts and pole locations and everything, he could do that between Dale Street and West Street.
Oh, good, that first section.
That
Get
first
down there,
section.
get down there, which would be good, that'd be a good
Yes.
start.
And then the second section is also pretty far along, particularly with this easement that we have the article on for. So he could get it from West Street down to West Mill.
Yeah.
So you're talking probably 2 or 3 years before you would get that done. Then it gets a little more complicated because you have a bridge to go over to get to Ice House Road.
Yeah.
So there'd have to be some kind of a engineering study done to do that, but you could start that in the meantime anyway and take a look at it, so.
Ice House already has an existing site.
As a sidewalk, yeah, they have one on one side, yeah.
So, that's my.
At least up as far as the,
Ice House actually has one on both sides, I think.
No,
No?
it's not on the far side.
all the times I go down there, I'm not sure, yeah.
Yeah, no,
I guess.
because they mow right to the
That's it.
side there. Pete, what did you have for your thoughts?
Well, I guess the ones that jumped out at me was Metacomet, because it was on all 3 of their lists as the top one. Dale was a connector that was on the superintendent's and the chief's list, but not on the school superintendent's list. But that one's such a small one that it struck me that is worth doing. I wasn't quite sure what the school superintendent was saying with Adams Street. He says it's important for the Dale Street students. And so I'm assuming that he's talking about that block next to the school up to
Right,
West
that-
Street.
Right, that would be the Dale to West Street section, I think he's particularly,
And so that if
Concerned,
in
yeah.
fact the schools think that's important, then I think that would be a good one to do. And that's on Ken's list as well.
yeah.
So I guess those would be the ones that I would focus on first.
Well, I'm very similar. One, Metacomet, which it sounds like is going to take place. I also had Dale Street, because I just see that, everything from Gateway all the way up, all the way into the center of town. My only concern I would like to have Ken at least look at, rather than remove, there's about 8 or 9 150-year-old pine trees that are there. On the other side of the street is town-owned land by the cemetery that's just flat grassland. If there's some way that the 4 feet of sidewalk could be on the north side and the street moved over, I'm not an engineer, and I don't know whether that's a ridiculous statement or not, but to move the street over, it's only a short section. I'd like at least him to look at that, if that was a possibility, before he
Yeah.
takes down all those trees.
I'm not sure, it depends on what utilities,
Right.
what your drainage is.
Right, and I have no idea, but I
That would
at
take
least,
some sort of a study.
I would like to at least have him at least look at it to see if it was possible or not,
Good.
before the trees came down. And then I had as a third one, which I know was expensive, I think Ken said it'd be $45,000 just study on that, and that's East Main Street, from Robertsboro down to Sunoco. I just see that as a dangerous area. I see a lot of people walking
Yep.
on 109. It scares me. I've had people that work at Shaw's and others that say they walk that, and I think that just is a safety.
You see people on it all the time.
Yeah, and I know that
Very
there's
needed
issues
one.
there with drainage and other things, but I'm just real scared seeing the people that walk down on 109. So that would be my third choice, and the other ones, the Adams Street, I know the superintendent of schools had some good issues on Prairie Street from Cottage to Dale, that they would be able to reduce a full bus, he said on that, and the kids would be able to walk on that, but, so, it sounds like all of us are looking at Metacomet and Dale as the first two, and I think, Mark, I think your statement makes a lot of sense. Let's get a couple done, and then look and see what the next year was, but, it sounds like the two of you are more feeling Adams Street, I was more feeling East Main Street.
I guess my guess is that the East Main Street one is a quantum expense
Yeah.
more than the East Main Street one, just because of the length of the East Main Street one is so much longer.
Yeah.
And it would probably be good to get numbers from Ken as to how much it's gonna
Well,
cost.
Ken has been talking to county engineers to see if they could do some survey work on it, and I believe that they think they can do something on it
Yeah.
and take a look at it, so.
But I mean, it would,
It's very
so that,
helpful, so.
but for us to compare East Main Street to Dale Street, for instance, or Adams Street, it would be good to know what the costs of each of those are, Mike.
Yeah, and that's where if we can get some surveying work and that done by the county engineers, it'd give us a good basis, because we'd know what drainage structures are there, what the quantities of water to be drained, and,
Yeah.
what the capacity of the brook and the culverts and that is downstream.
So can we ask Ken to do that, or is?
Yeah, I think he's already put a request into the county engineers to do that, to see if
There's a
they would
long
do the
wait time if
engineering.
you're gonna use the county engineers these days,
They
isn't there?
they said right now they're in between projects, and
Oh,
it
good.
might be a good time for them to get started on it, so we're hopeful that they'll be able to do it more quickly, so, which would be a big help, that would save quite a bit of money too for the town.
Has Ken given the town a date as to when he's gonna retire at this point?
Yes,
Ken's official retirement date is March 1st.
Okay, so it's soon, so we shouldn't be asking him to be doing.
Well, he's going to be staying on in the interim until we have a permanent replacement. We have advertisement out now. We anticipate applications back by February 22nd. And I would say best case scenario is end of April, we have somebody named on a permanent basis, so. Ken will stay on until that is done.
Okay, so it sounds like we can recommend Metacomet and Dale, and we can ask Ken to come back with some prices on Adams Street and East Main Street.
I would hope, and he owes us pricing on Harding Street as well. he was gonna get us that. We'd asked
I
him
think
a
it's-
long time ago.
Yeah, I think it's, unless we actually do the survey work and put some money forward to do the study of it, it's hard to actually just give you a cost estimate. It's not just a per foot basis, because you don't know what you have for takings and/or drainage, like Mike said.
I know he did say there's ledge up there on one side of the street, so you'd have to
Right.
decide which side to put the sidewalk on,
Of what?
There needs to be some engineering work
and, yeah.
undertaken first to understand what the cost estimate would be.
And then he wasn't sure what the layout is, where the layout
Right.
lines were, to see what property fences or whatnot might have to be moved or
Oh, it's
poles,
such an
so,
old street
so
and
it's
stuff.
a little more complicated than, I mean, he can give you a, ballpark per square foot price, or linear foot price, but it's not gonna mean much.
Right, it's not an
If he doesn't
actual
know
estimate.
what's involved, even to the extent of which side of the road it would be best located on.
So what's the best course of action then, if we're looking at Adams Street and East Main Street as far as waiting for the Norfolk County engineers to,
Well, he's got a request in the Norfolk County engineers, and it seemed to be, when we met with the county engineer, it seemed to be pretty favorable that they would be able to do some work on that, so that's pretty good. The request is in for that. Metacom, he's, other than that little easement he might need at the corner, he's in pretty good shape on that. And I think he's probably wanting to see if they could help on Adams Street, although I don't know, I don't think there's as much work, particularly on the first phase, because he's already got the layout and he's got the poles in the right location, so that should be. So those, I think, we're in pretty good shape on.
and then the Dale, he can maybe take a look at what would have to take place to do that connector between Charlesdale and Grove?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing would be if there's a sale of that property down there, which he was led to believe they're exploring, so. And the other one, I don't know where you want to put that on the list, the one the superintendent had for Ferry Street from Dale to Cottage, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, because he was talking about that, yeah.
Because I think there's an apartment building down there,
Mhm.
and then that would also be a service for the, well, maybe not, maybe it's a little bit far for the kids from Park. But certainly there's an apartment building down the end of Ferry where there are a number of kids that would be able to be serviced by that.
Well, it would help the school. Unfortunately, what happens after Cottage Street is you gotta navigate that bridge if you continue down Ferry Street, and then part of the sidewalk is there, and then it disappears, and it's kind of rough after
Yeah,
that.
there's almost no room, but there's a sidewalk there.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll talk to Ken too. They are talking about redoing the railroad crossing at Cottage. Maybe it would make more sense to run a sidewalk up Cottage,
Well, there is a sidewalk on Cottage.
all the way out to North. I didn't think it went all the way.
No, I think it's just from, to the tracks. On the
Yeah.
left-hand side, if you're on Ferry Street going up.
From Ferry up, is it?
Ferry up, I believe there's a sidewalk,
Hill?
but I think it starts at the tracks.
I think it might, yeah.
And then it starts up again when you get up by
Yeah, you go past,
Billy Pope's house there.
Well, I think they were hoping to lower that at Cottage a little bit, not a lot, but, just because the tracks right now are level
yeah.
with the roadway, and which is not a good situation. They want the tracks at least a little bit above the surface, so they might be talking some work there. Maybe we could get a sidewalk incorporated in there, and that might.
I could be wrong, I'm thinking, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm thinking it goes up to the far of the tracks there.
It's funny, all the time you walk, I walk there a lot, and I just don't really remember whether there's a
Walk on the
sidewalk or
street,
not,
Usually walk on the
yeah.
basal side of the street if you're walking, where there's no sidewalk.
Yeah, and depending on the time of the year, most people walk on the street anyway, if it's,
So what are we saying then? We're saying Metacomic Dale, and that we're
then
having
we'll work on the others. Yeah.
studies as far as East Main and Adams
Yeah, we'll
Street.
come back and see what we can come up with for you in terms
Okay.
of cost and timelines and any legal issues or land takings or might be involved. Okay, and then I assume all of those would be asphalt sidewalks. They're in asphalt districts as such, so there's nothing in the concrete district or the brick district at that point, so.
No, they're outside of that. Did Ken send you the list? Did you guys get a list from him?
Nope.
I can send you mine.
Thank you.
When I had.
We had the streets that had concrete, that required concrete sidewalks, yeah.
Right.
Mike, on the school superintendent's list, he's got Green Street. Is that one that's going to get built as part of the redoing of Green Street or not?
It's already done, I believe.
Yeah, I actually talked to him
Today.
today. The sidewalk right now goes the entire length of Green Street from North Street all the way up to Flintlock. But what he was looking at was on the east side, the sidewalk only will end at the swim pond. And he was looking at that to continue on up to Cypress, so the kids wouldn't have to cross the street, but,
Yeah, that's a lot of work, 2 sidewalks going up Green Street that long.
I mean,
That's-
all you need is a crosswalk, and they cross, there is a sidewalk that goes the entire length,
Yeah, yeah,
but only on one side.
yeah. It seems to me it would make more sense to do a crosswalk rather than a sidewalk all the way there, where we've got other needs
Yeah.
before that
Prefer
one,
to run in
certainly.
the street too, they don't even, half of them don't use the sidewalk anyways.
I know it's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, smoother on the street, yeah.
Anything else on the sidewalks? Okay, we have more old business, Selectmen's calendar. And for next meeting, we have review of the warrant articles for the annual town meeting, meet with the Historical Commission to discuss the demolition delay bylaw and review, which we did before.
Well,
We're gonna back in with the final,
With the,
Okay.
they've been working with Mark and come up with a
Okay.
final draft. I'll get that out to you, and it requires advertised public hearing and whatnot, so. And then we also talked about the warrant committee wanted to meet with you to discuss the capital plan, the master plan, the hospital master plan. And I asked Chris to put together something that would kind of give you a little primer on what the various articles were and what the intent was, because you've got a capital budget, a capital plan, a master plan, townwide master plan, a master plan for the hospital.
a lot of plans.
And there's one other thing, I think, what the heck was it?
Permanent Planning and Building Committee was looking at a building needs assessment.
Yes, yes.
There we go.
Actually, it was the permanent building committee that wants to come in and meet with you,
Okay.
so.
they wanna come in next meeting also?
They were the ones that requested to meet with you.
Not the
rather
warrant
than the warrant committee. No, but I think we should invite the warrant committee, but it was the permanent building committee that, what happened is, at their last meeting, they met with the Council on Aging and Park and Rec.
Ah.
And they were, by the end of the meeting, they felt that they needed to get together with you people to get some sort of a sense of direction as to how all these things should be proceeding. They felt it was gonna be too confusing at town meeting if you
Yeah.
went ahead with all of them, and that
Yeah.
there needs to be some sense of direction as to which comes first, the chicken or the egg, and
Yeah.
which is the chicken and which is the egg, that
Oh,
sort
that's
of
true.
thing. yeah.
So
Yeah.
if they're looking for us to make some sort of decisions about guidance for them, they would probably be good to have the Council on Aging and the Park and Rec come in too to state their cases.
Well, I think what they were trying to do is, because they did present their cases to the permanent building committee, but I think at this stage, what they're really looking for is, in order to make those decisions, they felt that there are steps that had to be taken prior to just deciding. They felt that, you shouldn't have individual groups coming into town meeting saying, we want a building. They felt that there should be part of a process, a facilities plan,
Makes sense.
and that it should all be worked out like it was 10 years ago when we decided to do the town garage first, the public safety
Right.
building next, and it was gonna be Dale Street, then
Yeah.
Park and Rec. And they felt that they're halfway there, but now it's time for reassessment of that.
Yeah.
and,
The process, they want to talk about the process.
The process, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
So, I'd be glad to invite the Council on Aging and, and Park and Rec certainly, but I think that wasn't, the intent wasn't of this meeting, I don't think, was for them to make a case for their projects. It was to discuss with you people how the
Process.
whole process should go forward.
Yep.
Without
we're-
confusing the town meeting too much by having several articles that seem to overlap.
I would invite Park and Rec and Council on Aging, because obviously the process is going to affect their plans.
It will, and it will affect the school too, because they've also got the Dale Street project coming down, so that would be affected. So we probably ought to at least ask them too, if we're gonna
Mhm.
do that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay. That sounds like a full crew there.
Well, that's a
Okay.
full meeting all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'll put either in March 1st or 15th or 18th. Can we see if we can get the Columbia Gas guy to come in? I reported again, one of my walks, a real strong odor of gas at the corner of Pound and South Street.
Yeah,
I
they've
think the
told
fire
the,
department went
they've
down
told the chief that that's on their schedule for the spring, so.
I'd love to have him come in and maybe verify that, so that, because I'm just nervous in that area. Okay?
Trust but verify.
We have our minutes of December 1, January 19th, and January 26th. Any corrections, deletions, or anything that anyone has? Mark?
I don't.
No,
need to be.
no, I would move that we approve them.
I actually have a couple that I'll give to Evelyn. Oh, well, good, and then I have a question on that. Bing's is B-Y-N-G-S, Bing's Pond. And this is on the minutes of December 1. And on the Friends of Dwight Derby House, it was the water bill, not the electric bill. And I guess that was it.
I would move that we accept the minutes with the amendments.
Second that.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye. There was one thing on the minutes that came up. I had suggested that we have Sheriff Bellatti's crew come back in the spring for a cleanup. Pete had suggested that the DPW run a cleanup, and I believe Reverend Jonathan of the First Baptist Church is coming back for the second annual cleanup that they want to do.
Good.
Is there a way maybe we can focus and take all three and come up with a cleanup day for the
Yeah,
town?
I mean, I would just suggest that we ask the DPW to organize it.
I would only caution that because we're gonna have a transition about that springtime for a new DPW director, so it may be a little soon for them to run that program. I'm just not sure what our transition time is on that. We may be best off waiting, and having the new DPW director plan it for the following year.
And just go ahead and work through the things with Bellotti and then with the.
Yeah.
And then maybe Reverend Jonathan, the DPW, can help him
Exactly.
as you did last year. And then the following year, I think you're right, we have a Medfield cleanup day that they're in charge of. And then hopefully this group continues on and will help.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've also had a couple of Eagle Scouts that have come in and expressed an interest in doing some work on Redgate Farm, so I've put them in touch with Leslie Willets, try to come up with some projects, because we have asked people, how do you get there and where do you park, and there are trees across the trail, how do you find the
Somebody-
trails?
Keep going, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody should be creating a series of markers for the town lands and the trailheads for things like up at Jade Walk, where
Yeah,
it's across somebody's side lawn. I mean, it's, unless there's a marker there that tells people, you know, this is the trail.
Yeah.
Although I think
So-
in some cases where they've put them up,
They
they've
do it on
been
purpose.
quickly removed.
Well, I mean, you know,
Yeah,
we can,
I think there'd be some good Eagle Scout project.
Yes, there would be,
Maybe that the
yes.
Conservation Commission can work with as well.
Yeah.
I know that
Who
some
should
places,
do
but
it,
there's
but-
some, people don't know how to get, you're right, people don't know how to
Yeah.
act, like Redgate Farm. Somebody says, well, how do I even get in there?
Right. Right, I think that's a problem. I don't think anybody's using it because they don't know how to get in there.
I've talked to a few people that have out walking in that area and that do walk through there occasionally.
But
although
they're not
so
quite
much
sure,
this time of year.
how do I get in? Am I in private property? Am I on public property? Or
Yeah,
maybe
that's why
that's,
it'll be good to have a couple of scouts that
Yeah,
come up
and
with
get
work
some
with
signage and
conservation.
stuff.
I think conservation usually works with the scouts because the conservation commission has markers that they've made up. I know Ralph Parmesan and Phil Burr usually go out in the spring and put
Right.
back the ones that have come down and that kind of thing.
Speaking of that, where do we stand? I know we had a request from Bay Colony about moving the trail.
we're waiting to hear from the,
Yeah, I think they have an appointment with the Medfield State Hospital Committee to talk with them about it.
That's right, okay, yeah, good.
Did we
Okay,
ever, excuse me,
yep.
did we ever finish a trail map so that people in town can see?
We were
all
not
the-
officially doing the trail map. The Forest and Trails Committee was doing the trail map. And I don't believe they have finished doing the trail map, but the town had never officially done
Okay,
a trail map. We were assisting and helping the Forest and Trails Committee that was working in town, but the town itself hadn't.
that's not an official town committee, is it?
I don't believe it was ever an official committee. We were just helping
And that
them.
was David Lafreniere,
Correct.
yeah, and he's
Correct.
moved
Yeah,
out
he
of
was doing
town.
a
Yes.
nice job. It's a
Yeah.
shame
So
that-
I think
Yeah.
that the town should create a trail map for people. I don't know how you, I mean, I think we just need to borrow, we need to
well, I think
borrow
we already
a,
have the Conservation Commission. I think that.
I believe Conservation has been working on that. I'll touch base with them. I know that's part of what they're working on with the open space plan. So I'll talk to Leslie and report back.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the GPS
You're welcome.
would be feasible, so.
I'd actually be glad to go to the Conservation Commission and one of their meetings and just bring that up.
great.
Or maybe and I'll report back on that. New business, we have request by MEMA, by the way of the Fire Chief, Kingsbury, requesting selectmen vote to authorize myself to sign a letter confirming Ray Burton Jr. as Community Emergency Response Coordinator for the town of Medfield, in keeping with the guidelines of the Massachusetts Emergency Response Commission.
It's basically similar to what we used to call civil defense director.
Same thing.
So is this Sergeant Burton from the Medfield Police Department, or is it?
Yes, he's been doing it for a number
Um,
of years.
It's his son.
It says
It's
junior,
his son.
is that
It's Junior. It's his son.
Junior?
Yes,
Oh, it's the
it's his
state
son.
trooper.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
I believe so, isn't it?
No, that's how he signs his name on the
Oh, I'm sorry, that's
town
he's the
report.
third. That would be Ray Burton the third,
Oh,
is
Yeah.
his son. No, that is
This is Sergeant Burton. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, second.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye. We have a notice that the selectmen are invited to attend the Historical Commission Regional Meeting on March the 9th at 7:30 at the Sherburne Town Hall. We have the Medfield Energy Committee requesting the selectmen vote to sign a letter that I have here addressed to the Honorable Stanley Rosenberg, Senate President, and Robert DeLeo, Speaker of the House, confirming Medfield's support for the solar-generated electricity. And I believe this is the one we voted on already.
Yep, so moved, but if we have to sign it again, yep, that's fine.
Second?
All in favor?
Yep.
We have to discuss potential projects for use of the downtown meals tax. Just my thoughts on that. I know I saw Peter, I'm not sure, Mark, if you had a chance to go over to the
Yeah, you do.
downtown summit that was there. But there was a lot of information that came out. And I would like to tap into some of the information recommendations that came out of that summit. I mean, I have a lot of ideas. I have tree planting. Already we're going to do 5,000 plus that's going to go to the Straw Hat Park. I think we need some brick sidewalks and something along Prairie Street by the pond. The Aesthetics and Sidewalk Committee, which is under the Planning Board, had talked about creating a different design for the crosswalks. That might be something we could help, even if they did one to start as a pilot under the direction of the chief of what he wanted. I think there's some landscaping. Even the front of our town hall is very bare by the trees and stuff. I think we could spruce that up. I know some of the existing brick sidewalks in front of town hall and in front of the Unitarian Church, some of those need replacement. Some of the funds could go there. But I think I spoke to Sarah on this, and she's feeling it would take them about a month and a half to get all the data back and everything like that, which I'm not sure if that's gonna be too late for us to meet with the warrant committee and then present at town meeting. So I asked her if she could just have him tap into some of the raw data
Yeah.
and get us some of the lead ideas that
Ones that are
that
jumping
came
out,
here.
jumping out.
And then we could look at that, and then when we go to the warrant committee, we'll have an exact plan of where the money would go.
It would be nice to get something with some visibility so that people could see, particularly with the first year you're doing
Where the
something
money's
with it, where
spent.
the money's spent,
That's a good idea.
rather than have it go into things that people don't notice.
Right.
One of the things I noticed the other day, have you seen the signage? They kind of coordinated the signage on the strip mall in 27. Looks very nice, I think. They're not all the same, but they're all the same materials.
Yeah.
And it really dressed up the building quite a bit, I thought, than, each one doing their own sign. So, have a chance, maybe something like that could be done with some of the stores in town and contribute some money to help pay for the difference
Thought,
in signage, if, that might be a good one
I think
to.
that when, a long time ago, I remember the Downtown Study Committee had the town planner from Norwood come over, and that was one of the things they talked about, that because they had actually gotten state grant money, I think. And they had done signage in the downtown
do that,
Norwood
yeah,
area.
Yeah, I think, you can get a lot of payback for a modest amount of money with something like that, if you can,
We probably should involve the sign committee with that too, then.
yeah.
That's some good ideas, some very good ideas.
And
Yeah.
somehow we need to be creating some visibility for the merchants down on Park Street.
Yeah,
We
that would be.
talked
another
about some
one.
sort of
Have
kiosk or something to, I actually talked to Jim James about that recently. He says the man that owns the corner where the ant place is very friendly, community-spirited man, Ghazi. I guess he owns the
Interesting.
car.
One of the things on the downtown summit that was suggested would be running sidewalks down
Sidewalks on Park Street is
Yeah.
another, yeah.
and putting some lighting in there so that it would be
Yeah.
lit up better at night. Which I think either of those would be.
But there's tremendous traffic volume that goes by, but they have no clue what's down on Park Street, unless you live in town.
Yeah.
Do-
The only problem with sidewalks is there's so much of the area that's used for driveways now that you wouldn't get much of a sidewalk, and you'd have little pieces of sidewalk between.
Yeah,
Especially on the right-hand side.
yeah. On
Yeah.
on the bank side,
Right-hand side.
you'd do better.
Yeah.
It's true though, you're right, because it is broken up quite a bit, obviously. You've got a lot.
Yeah, and Park Street Station is all driveway, everybody pulls in at angle
Right,
parking
right.
there. and-
Yeah, you've got Medfield Tire, same thing, probably across, on the other side of the street.
Yeah, and the dentist office there, that
It's
building,
all
that's all open.
Yeah.
And the Kazi's Motors there, that's
It's
all open.
It's
yeah,
gotta
so,
be, yeah.
It's too bad, because I think it would kind of give a better sense of business district if there was somehow you could
I mean, there's,
have limited
maybe
driveway.
continue it from the bank, but then when you come down to the Medfield Tire, that's all wide open there. Till you get
Yeah.
to the funeral parking, I mean, that's a tough area to
Yeah.
decide.
And then that's why
And
open
then-
course. for-
And then you get to, was it Four Paws is down there too,
Yeah.
isn't that?
Yeah.
And that's sort of the end of the business district when you get
Yeah.
to that
That's,
kind of,
yeah.
yeah. Although there are a couple of businesses cropping up down the end now.
Yeah.
There's an upholstery place, and Randy's has got his.
Randy just opened his place.
Across the street
Yeah,
from his house.
yeah. Unfortunately, I've already had to go see him.
So at one point, we were looking to see if there was sufficient town land to put up some sort of sign or kiosk. Did we ever figure that out?
We determined there was not, and the sign committee actually had some concerns about that as well.
Off-premises sign?
Yes, yeah. And that it was not allowed, and that if you started to allow them for certain businesses, then you would start to set a precedent. So,
It's too bad. I feel bad for the owners of the businesses down there. It is hard for them to be,
Yeah.
for people to find them.
Yeah.
So,
How about exploring, if the fellow that owns the corner lot where the pest people are is willing to host a town sign on his property. How about looking into that?
feel
Well, I think
Those would
that's what the sign committee had a problem with,
Yeah,
because then that would
it's-
exceed
Oh,
his
just 'cause
signage,
It'd be an off-premise sign.
yeah,
On private property, yeah.
yeah.
So,
But if you're gonna, yeah, I mean, it's just to promote a business district, not individual merchants, is my thought, but.
Oh, you just decided to say business district, not what's actually down there?
Yeah, or
I think you
retail
could do it,
district
but
or
it would
something.
probably take some sort of a zoning change and changing the sign bylaw to allow it. That's what I think they were concerned about, that they're afraid it would set a precedent, and other people would want it for other areas of business district, you know, somebody might want it for North Street or for Green Street or, you know, whatever. Somebody might want it for Prairie Street.
Well, I think that I mean, that's a very unique situation down on Park Street, and I think
It
we
is,
should
yeah.
try to figure out something to do for them that assists them. And I don't see it as like a directory of all the businesses that are down there so much as something that's flashy, that catches people's eyes and indicates that there's retail down there.
Yeah, yeah. And it's too bad there are some ways, you know, like banners are nice. When you see stores that have their banners out that say we're open, you know,
Yeah.
I don't think I think it's kind of helpful to go by and you say, well, do I want to go
Yep.
to that place, but is it open? And if they have
Yeah.
a banner out, you can say, well, it's open, you know, so.
I mean, Park Street,
Unfortunately, you can't see down, can you do a temporary sign and keep changing it?
I don't know. The bylaw committee, I just signed, they'll be putting it in front of your house, they'll move the sign down and stick it.
If you put it in front of my house, it'd be, only the Mitchell field would see it, but maybe you get Tommy to go shop there. Okay, so my suggestion was Sarah was gonna get back to us with some of the main points that came out of the downtown summit, unless you guys had additional ideas revenue-wise.
I think that was great, you had some great ideas, I think
Okay.
we good to hear from Sarah, yeah.
Okay.
have we figured out an amount that we're gonna dedicate to this?
Michael had 25,000, 5,000's already going to
So we got
Stryhat
20.
Park, so that would take it down to 20. Okay, selectmen are requested to vote to sign a letter to the Boston delegation regarding state funding for rehabilitation, reconstruction of the Bridge Street, West Street, Dover Road Bridge between Medfield and Millis.
So moved.
Second?
I thought we were all set. The governor has the new small bridge program
Yeah,
for, I think he's putting, I don't know, $15 million or something in it, so.
Yeah, it's
I
50
talked to
million.
Ken about it, and it's for bridges between 10 and 20 feet wide.
it's pretty tiny.
Yeah,
So is there another program that has larger width that,
there is, but then you get in a competition with Boston and.
oh, Route 128 and everything else?
Yes, yeah.
When they were reporting on that small bridge, 50 million, they were talking about federal monies available, which struck me as,
Part of what I read in the, I think it was in the Beacon, it said that they were trying to help smaller communities with small bridges on local roads that were not eligible for federal funding.
well, yeah, and that's why I assumed that there was federal funding for some things then.
I think it has to be on the federal road system, you know, and a lot of these small bridges are not on the federal road system.
None of our roads are, so,
No.
yeah, so.
Okay, selectmen are requested to execute Town of Medfield agreement with the Environmental Partners Group, Inc., Amendment Number 2 for the Hospital Road Water Main and Storage Tank. Mike, any,
Yeah, this is in connection with the water tower up at the state hospital, because the project is extended on beyond the anticipated completion date of December, I think it originally was, or November. They've asked for an amendment to their contract to cover the additional work. And there's some other additional work that they had to do up there in connection with the going under the water main, coordinating it with the T. So that's for the additional work. And then the contractor that's doing the work wanted a agreement that there would, because of the winter delay, we wouldn't seek delay damages for the winter period. We will still be seeking delay damages because they failed to adequately staff up during the summer and fall, and they understand that. But this is to protect them from any delay over the winter. You know, part of the reason for the delay is they decided that they needed to put another coat of paint on some of the ones they've already done, that the coverage wasn't what they hoped, and they thought it would have long-term effects on the wear of it. So they'd rather wait a bit and do a second coat on part of the exterior of the tank. They also have to paint the inside of the tank. And of course, this is the ideal weather for painting insides of tanks. And then they have to weld the top on the tank and then paint that, so they still got quite a bit. The scheduled completion date now is for May 26th. Yeah. And there is also the contractor putting the water main, Olivera Construction. They have essentially completed their work except for the repaving of Hospital Road.
Okay.
That's going to be a curb-to-curb paving. And it's probably just as well they haven't, because there's still some uncertainty as to what's being proposed up there on Hospital Road where Mosier's and Santucci's land is.
Oh,
I
I
understand.
keep seeing more and more for sale signs along that stretch there, that borders that property.
Well, Sarah and I met with
Lockett Brothers.
last week, and they said they've assembled about 8 acres, is what the figure they gave. 8.
It's a lot of land.
They've been buying up more houses then, because they had 6 the last time we heard.
Yeah, I think there were 2 additional properties that I saw for sale signs, and I think I don't know if they've gone through with it, because they still have to go through the whole gamut with the state, so. But they were talking somewhere between 40 and 60 units now they're looking at. The reason I wanted to meet with them, I wanted to encourage them to look at 55 and older housing for the non-affordable units, you know, to provide. We've all talked about the need for 55 and older housing, and I wanted to discourage them from putting up $1 million condos or houses, and encourage them to do something that would address the need for 55 and older housing for people that want to stay in Medfield. So they seem to listen anyway. They were going to talk with the Council on Aging, and they also said they would talk with their architect to see what he.
How big are their units down here on North Street? Are those 2 or 3 bedroom units?
I think they're probably 2,500 in that range.
Do we know how many bedrooms there are?
Good size.
I think there's 3 anyway. most
They're
of
selling them
I
for, I
think.
saw it for a little over 700,000.
Yeah. $700,000 house ain't what it used to be. Unbelievable.
Okay,
So moved.
second?
What do we, yes, second.
It was kind of a weak second, is that second?
We'd gone so far from the original
We're back
issue that we were
to,
talking about, I was
Well, just let me review
circling
here.
back to see what we were
The
actually
Selectmen
voting on.
requested to execute Town of Medfield agreement with Environmental Partners Group, Inc., Amendment Number 2 for the Hospital Road water main and storage tank.
Environmental Partners, isn't that our
That's our
consultant?
consultant, right, yeah. That's
All right,
what
so
the
we're
amendment is for their
We're giving
company.
our consultant more money.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. How much more?
I think it's, I don't know, but I can't
Oh,
remember.
38,000,
38,000, 37.
38,000.
Yeah.
38?
Second.
It's on that first thing, on the report, yeah. It's like on page 2 or 3, they've got,
Did we end up-
38,829 and 76 cents.
Second.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Mike, did we end up having to pay Oliveri, the people that were doing the water tower, the main? Were they doing the water tower too, or just the?
No, there was a separate contract for the
Okay.
water main.
So the Oliveri was held up a long time by the railroad crossing. Did we end up having to pay them more because of that?
No, I don't think we did, because they ended up not having to de-water. Because by the time, and also they were able to do cut and cover rather than directional drilling.
So they made up their.
So I think that.
Came out okay.
Yeah,
All
I'll
right.
check with the environmental partners to make sure, but I think by the time they, one thing outweighed the other. I think they may be entitled to some additional work on the compensation on the paving because of the delay in that, so. But they did an excellent job. They're very.
So who's
good
gonna,
to work with.
who's gonna pay to repave Hospital Road, curb to curb?
Well, Olivera will do the work. It will come out of the bond money for the.
That's part of their job, okay.
Yes, yeah.
That's a long stretch to pave.
It is, yeah, but it's, they dug up quite a bit of the road and putting it in, and it
Yeah,
was.
they left a big hole at the end of my street, which annoys
Yeah,
me.
well, that's where they hit ledge, that's why they ran
Oh.
into big holes up there.
Well, there's some sort of valve in the street, and that's sunk down about like 6 inches, and so there's
And they-
quite a big
well,
hole
yeah,
there that you drive
I
through.
remember when they started up in that area, they ran into more ledge than they anticipated, so I think there were some extras on the ledge in the contract, because it's a unit price. They also, it's a good thing that we ended up working with the T, because, CSX wasn't gonna let us do cut and cover, they were gonna make us do directional drilling. And when they ended up digging it up, there were boulders right under the railroad tracks, or big hunks of ledge. And they would have had a terrible time. They would have hit refusal on trying to put it under, and you could have had a big additional expense trying to resolve that issue. So for once, the T was a good thing for us.
Love the T.
Yeah, ever hear you say that?
Yes.
That's the first.
Actually, they've been very good to work with, I will say, on this project. And all the grade crossings, the one in the center, they were terrific to work with, and then they were
Did you
very happy.
get that in the minutes?
I heard him say, I love the tea. I don't know if everybody else heard.
They actually told us, it's a two-way street, it's a two-way affair. They said we were the best town they'd ever had to work with. So we were so cooperative between the highway and the police and the water department, and everybody just was helping out, yeah.
It's nice to hear.
And even the merchants were very good about it too.
So, Mike, it sounds to me like the Larkin Brothers developers have not fully settled on what they're gonna do on
No.
Hospital Road.
That's why I wanted to
So it
try to
strikes
get
me
to
that the
road.
town has an opportunity maybe to try to impact them. And so I think that would behoove the town if maybe you, or I don't know who it should be, but somebody should be talking to them about changing or titrating their plans so that it works better for the town than.
That's what was
We
the,
met with
what
them,
I
yeah.
was trying to do. Now, I don't know if, of course, that was just my take on it from what I've heard expressed at all these meetings about the need for 55 and older housing.
Yeah, I think
But I
so.
think maybe if there's any input from the board or from the planning board or.
I mean, I would think that
anybody
the
like it
town,
would make
as a
sense.
whole, would be very happy to trade off some density increases for fewer bedrooms and
Yes.
for, and
And-
maybe
and-
for some, I mean, if there was some sort of design review, I don't happen to like the looks of their buildings.
Yeah, they're kind of.
And so that if they could make them look nicer, I know that I, for one, would be way happier. I don't know if they would be entertain design review, but I mean, we could try to talk to them about densities.
Yeah,
as a
well,
bonus?
Roberta, is she back this week, or I think she's
Yeah,
back
she
now?
will be.
Is she back? Yeah, so I can find out if she's heard from them, and maybe we could sit in on the meeting when they, if they're
Would
gonna
you be
get
willing
together.
to be the board's representative on that?
Oh, sure, yeah.
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 Because I think, I talked to them about first floor bedrooms, and they said, oh, we don't have enough room for that. We make our money on the second floor, not on the first floor, as they actually said. So I said, well, my brother and sister-in-law moved into a 27 square foot house in Virginia. It's all on one floor except for one bedroom, and it's a 2-car garage, and it's like a 7,000 square foot lot. So there is plenty, they can do it
Of course, if they want to.
if they have a mind to, yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
Well, a lot of those over in Norfolk are that, they have the first floor, they have a spare bedroom like on the second floor, but the family could stay on the first floor, which is what a lot of people want.
Yeah.
Watch how they build houses in Arlington and Somerville and Medford, when they have to rebuild houses. You can make things fit, anything.
Yes.
A little teeny
Yes.
postage stamp of a lot, you can.
Yeah. There's an awful lot to how you organize it, too, so. Of course, one of the things that is creating a problem for builders today is this stormwater, where you have to keep all the stormwater on the site,
Yeah.
because you have to figure out how to retain all that stormwater depending on what your lot coverage is.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
okay.
We have licenses. Medfield Garden Club requests permission to post signs advertising the annual Art in Bloom, which is a great event, which will take place at the Medfield Public Library, March the 17th through March the 20th.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes,
Aye. Selectmen reports, Selectman Fisher.
Just a question, I know on a preliminary draft we had for the agenda, we also had just a license and permit from the summer concert series, and I didn't know if we wanted to vote on that tonight too or not.
Yes.
Is that good? Just the preliminary one that had gone out
Oh, I
on
didn't see
on
that.
Friday and stuff like that. We
Okay,
had that.
we have then Memo Summer Concert. Chairman Russ Hallisey requests the Selectmen vote to grant permission to hold the Summer Concert Series Thursday evenings, June the 12th through August the 18th, across the street at the town gazebo. Additionally, request permission to hang the Memo banner across Main Street that promotes that annual event, which is kind of a town tradition and very well attended.
Yeah, so moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Yeah, it's just-
And
Just remind them to get
we have
their
new
insurance
business
certificate.
here. Also in the preliminary one,
There's another one.
is this on it on Selectman Feeney wanting the meal allowance to increase? Is that
Yes,
still on
yes.
it? Is that a joke?
No, it's not a joke.
No, and
We don't have
Joy,
to vote on it.
The town accountant wouldn't approve breakfast for the,
The town kind of proved they could have a bigger breakfast.
up to $8. She
No,
won't
but
approve.
she's-
From 8 to 10.
Well, Kent, yes, she won't
Hold the
approve more than
bacon,
8.
huh?
what?
It's locked at
No,
8.
she,
What?
Yeah,
Joy said it's okay to
Joy
go
should-
from 8 to 10.
She did.
we just
Oh.
Yes.
have it.
But I think she just wants-
We just need a vote.
They get hash browns with that?
What?
Hash browns with that?
Hash browns, I think, yeah.
Bacon, no sausage. No.
Yes.
So do we have to do anything on
We're gonna
that?
vote. We have
I
to
think you
vote.
need to vote.
We do.
Okay.
Do we have a motion then to increase the meal allowance for breakfast for the DPW workers from $8 to 10?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Excellent.
Okay.
It'd even cost you that much at McDonald's these days if you're not careful.
I know, because, yeah, it doesn't go very far.
Anything else, Selectmen's report?
No, nothing, just a Zulu Gallery first Thursday. We had a week or so ago, so it's great. The weather, hopefully it'll get a little bit better and we can be out on the roof deck soon.
Coming soon.
Which will be
Coming
good.
soon.
Which will be good.
Yes.
And Pete, Mr. Peterson?
The Energy Committee had a meeting last week, and Fred Davis updated his analysis of the replacements of all, the purchase of all the streetlights in town, and replacement with LED lights. And his original pro forma on it had the town having a payback of 3.6 years, but with the additional more precise figures, the payback is 2.6 years, so it's, I mean, this is just it makes absolute sense to go ahead and buy the buyout figure for the streetlights is $1, and we're gonna start saving
Yeah, the only
tens of
concern I
thousands a
have
year.
about that I think I've asked them to look into more carefully is the town assumes responsibility for maintenance of the lights.
Yeah, they figured in a maintenance, an annual maintenance
And
contract.
I think it's very low. They have, what, $5,000 for an annual maintenance cost,
Something like that, yeah.
which is very
You
low.
need to probably start setting aside money in a capital plan to replace them eventually too, I suppose.
I think there was something about $88,000 was going to be the amortization cost or something. That may have gone down, but they're not charging us because they've fully depreciated all of the streetlights in Medfield. They depreciate them on a 20-year depreciation schedule. So they can't say, okay, we've depreciated them 0 and now we're going to put them back up again unless they change the lights. So they do have a 0 value as far as their schedule show. That's why they're willing to sell them to us for that. But I think once if they put the new lights in for us, then they will be a charge. I think we have to either pay for the new lights or have to work out some financing schedule.
He's got the price of installation here at around $26,000 on this. This is the old pro forma. So he's figured in a price of installation.
My concern is, I saw this happen several years ago. A bunch of towns jumped in because they were gonna have all the streetlights taken care of, they were gonna own, they were gonna save all kinds of money, and they contracted with an outfit out of somewhere up on the North Shore. It was a municipal power and light company, and I think the guy ended up going to jail. He was contracting with every city and town to maintain their streetlights, and he was getting a cut, my understanding. So what happened is they started getting calls, halfway across the state. They had a light bulb out and they had to go change the light, and all of a sudden the municipal light company was losing their shirt on it. They canceled all the contracts.
Well, I would assume that whoever's gonna implement this would vet the maintenance people and make sure that you didn't hire that one for sure.
Well,
So,
The problem is, you can have a contract for 3 years, and then in your 3 years, you can't renew your contract, but you own the streetlights, and you've got to assume the maintenance, and do you have to go out and buy a truck that will reach the lights, and
no,
do
you
you have
just
to have an
hire a different
electrician?
maintenance person.
If they're available.
Yeah, well,
Um,
and since all the towns are buying their streetlights, I would
That's what
assume that there are gonna
happened
be a lot of
before. They
towns
all-
that are gonna need the maintenance, so there'll
Yeah.
probably be a provider. I mean,
It may, it may be a fine thing. And remember, we only spend about $42,000 on streetlights. That's our
savings is
total
projected
cost.
at 24,500 a year on this, and I think it went up on the next iteration that he did of this. So, I mean, if you're saving $25,000 a year, it's worth doing.
It could be. I have my concerns that I want to make sure are fully vetted.
Yeah, well, that's important, yeah, that
Yeah.
you
Because the
get
maintenance is
satisfied.
forever, the maintenance is forever, that's the thing, yeah.
Yes, and once Eversource gets rid of all these towns, they don't want them back, because they don't want the responsibility. You get a car that hits a light post and, knocks the pole out, as Evelyn can tell you, happens quite often. Then we have to go put the light back up. And we have to maybe go buy the new light and put the light up and file an insurance claim.
Verizon owns all the poles in town, so they would take care of the pole, and then,
And Eversource does.
They would probably,
Eversource does?
They own all.
Eversource
Oh,
owns all the
Verizon.
poles, yeah.
Um,
It varies from town to town. In Medfield's case, Eversource happens to own
Okay,
the whole.
all right, so Eversource would take care of the pole, and yes, and our maintenance company would have to put up the
Yeah,
new,
and then if you
light.
decided you wanted to put lights someplace where there was underground lighting, the town would have to buy the pole and put the pole up. A lot of our subdivisions, for example, have
Oh, if you're
underground
gonna
lighting.
put up new things where there's no pole, you're saying?
Right,
Yeah.
that would
Yeah,
be our
well.
responsibility to, unless there was already a pole there for lighting,
We usually don't do that, though.
because we don't own the lights.
Yeah, we haven't added lights in a long time.
No. But for example, let's say you decided to put them on Ice House Road, then you'd have to do
the
that.
pole.
That would be our responsibility.
Well, yeah, that would be that's our responsibility now, and that's why we don't have them there at the moment.
Yeah.
'Cause we haven't been willing to pay for it.
Right.
So that was one of the topics of discussion at the Energy Committee. Let's see, what else was it? It's the Solar Eyes Medfield is going forward, that Marie Nolan presented to us. And so has that gone in, Mike, now? I know
The
there was-
letter, that's the letter you had, there was another letter that's gone in on that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And basically what that is, it's to try to encourage a large number of people to contract with, or to somehow put out to bid, to have solar panels
At their
installations
homes.
put on their houses.
Yeah, and the more people that sign up, then the idea is that the lower the
the
price
cost
would
down.
be for everybody, because you get.
Yep, yeah.
And I think that was pretty much the Energy Committee. I would say that the Economic Development Committee's Downtown Summit was fascinating to take part in. The material it wasn't too complicated, because basically you were just coming up with a couple things that you thought were strengths and things that you thought were weaknesses, and then picking a bunch of pictures that were things that you'd like to see or visual images that you'd like in the downtown. I'm going to be very curious to see how they collate all of that and get the information back to the Economic Development Committee.
Yeah, I thought they did a nice job. That was a pretty good turnout. They had about 100 people, I think.
Oh, good.
Yeah. One of the things I found about it is that there are a lot of things in the downtown. When you think about it, we have a pretty functioning downtown. You've got, banks and real estate offices. You've got restaurants. You've got food establishments.
More banks and more real estate offices and.
Yeah. But, the last few years, I remember when everybody was complaining that there seemed to be a lot of vacant buildings downtown. Now you really don't see much.
No.
It's
I think that
a
we're.
very healthy downtown.
I think we're kind of short on terms of retail opportunities.
Yeah, although with this building next door and the one up on North Street going up, that opens up some
Yep,
new spots. so
That'll
I
create
think-
some more spots, so that's good.
Have you heard what's going in that one? Do we know?
Other than I heard some sort of Italian takeout or grocery store or something, but then I heard they weren't sure. They may have renegotiated a lease someplace. So, no, I haven't. No.
One of the things that occurred to me as I thought about the downtown summit was that I think that we should get the downtown study committee involved.
I think that needs to, one of my goals was that, when that comes back to the report, that be one of the things to revitalize and get a full new membership on that, and use the summit as the springboard for them getting going. I agree 100% on that.
Well, they sort of went under when the Cultural Council took over the Pocket Park. Is that what happened? They kind of dissolved?
No, I think there were multiple different committees going, and the Downtown Study Committee wasn't sure what its role was, and the chairman resigned, so they just haven't had the strength to come back together.
I think they just need to be reconstituted and asked to work on things.
Yep.
Because they should be involved in summits related to the downtown.
Definitely,
And
yeah.
I think the vision plan that was done in 2006 or 7 still has a lot of meat in it. And it's a great guideline. It needs to be updated, but it's a great guideline to begin with. And
Yep.
that's already done. They did a
Yep.
lot of work on that.
Yeah, it's a good project. And the Pocket Park was one of the first things they recommended in that too, so. By the way, Evelyn got an invoice today for a bunch of benches and whatnot for the Pocket Park, so they've been delivered, and as soon as the weather breaks and highway can get in there and start doing some of the site work, that should be underway, so.
We got a busy spring.
Yeah, they've already done some of the work.
Well, I remember, could you ask, because they've done half of them, the Eagle Scout that did the Adirondack chairs?
Yeah.
Asked if the 2 chairs at the Straw Hat Park and the 2 behind the gazebo could be moved somewhere down the highway garage.
I think they moved them last week.
Well, they moved the
I think.
2, but they didn't move these ones yet.
Oh, okay.
But
good.
apparently they're gonna get other Boy Scouts to refurbish them, revarnish them, so when the weather gets good, they can put them out nice and shiny.
Okay, where are the other 2 over in?
Right behind the gazebo,
Gazebo.
on that area, the grass area where the concerts are held.
Okay.
If they could just move those 2.
Okay.
The last thing that I did was to have a meeting with the member of the warrant committee, one of the 2 members of the warrant committee who's assigned to the State Hospital Planning Committee meeting. And he was expressing a concern, as he had at their meeting, about what their target end date is, and suggested to me, which I thought was a very good idea, that perhaps we should ask the committee if they could perhaps try to plan ahead as to when they anticipate getting to where they're gonna want to get to, and then try to plan backwards from that as to the steps that are gonna, but at least just try to find out what their planned endpoint is.
Yeah, there was,
Similar to the question.
I thought there was some suggestion they were shooting for a target date sometime in the fall.
Well, I would suggest that as a board, that we send them a letter and just ask them if they could respond maybe to us in terms of.
Well, it might be good to have them come in, periodically. I think it would be
Get
good
an
for the
update,
public
informal
to,
update, yeah.
because a lot of people that, not many people go to the meetings. So people don't really know for sure what's going on, so it might be good to have some,
I believe they'll also be providing an update at town meeting. I know I spoke to somebody on the committee who was requesting permission from Scott McDermott to speak for a small amount of time at town meeting to provide an update for everybody, so.
that'd be good. I think that'd be very helpful
But it might be good to have them come before this board before they do that.
for,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Is that something we can
And-
put on our agenda then sometime before the April?
And maybe as part of that request to them to come in, we could ask them to try to give us some sense of what their planned timeline
heading
is.
towards, yeah.
And that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just follow up, when you talked about energy and the streetlights. I met with a Eagle Scout candidate who wants to look at all the streetlights in town and see if he can get someone that lives nearby to quote-unquote adopt a streetlight. And what they would do is, when they see that streetlight is out, they would have the number to call, and they would kind of be responsible, and he thought that would be something that would help just in safety, because a lot of times people drive by, the streetlight is out, they figure somebody else is, you know, going to do that. So what he was thinking is that he would come up with a little sheet of paper that would have, and it's entirely voluntary whether the person wanted to do that or not, but their name, and they officially would adopt that streetlight, and then it would have the number to call on that, so the person would actually have that, and when they see that light out, they would then call it, and in theory, we'd be able to keep our lights on in town.
Yeah, I know Andrew's been going around town checking all the streetlights to make sure that. they
As has the chief
exist,
with his
yes.
crew.
I think they've been, yeah, so
Yeah.
that might be,
Actually, Andrew might be a good one for him to see, actually.
yeah. There is a program now, I think, that the utilities have. They have a phone number where you can call in and report an outage. And I think they put it on some sort of a schedule. So they are getting a bit better about it. For a while, they would never come out and do it, but they seem to be getting better on that lately.
But I think the key is you have to call, because they're not gonna put it on unless there's,
No,
I mean, they don't drive around looking for it.
no.
So, I mean, a light could be out forever. They could care less, because we pay for it, whether it's
Right.
on or off.
But before, I believe as I talked to the chief, he said before people would call the police station and report an outage. Now they have a direct number
Right.
where you can call and it gets on their computer and
I
it gets
I
scheduled.
think actually that's on our website, yeah.
It's been tweeted out several times today, because we still have, as of 8/17, had 361 residents without power.
Still tonight, because of the wind.
Well, it's funny, after all the storms, and then today we get 700 some houses we had out.
Yeah, I think we had 643 was our highest, and then we're down to 361.
Yeah.
It's amazing, yeah, that you still think there's still more branches that seem to be able to come down and clean out the power lines. It's unbelievable, you know?
Yeah,
Because we
yeah.
go
Of
through
course,
the
it was so windy today, and so.
Okay, and then I also went to the downtown summit, and I think you kind of summarized, I thought it was well-attended. I think there's a lot of good ideas, and I think there'll be helpful feedback. And again, I would really like to see the reactivation of the Downtown Study Committee to use a lot of that information, work with the Economic Development Committee, and I keep our downtown going.
How about we send out a message to the Downtown Study Committee to ask them to try to hook up with the Economic Development Committee to analyze the results.
I think we need to get the committee established.
There's a committee.
You still have a few members
I
left,
think
yeah.
there were a couple left there, but I think we
Yeah.
need to add. I had someone come to me that wanted to be on the committee that lives on Pleasant Street, is in the downtown,
Yeah,
so.
that would be good.
Maybe we could put a call out for, if there's anybody interested in serving on the Downtown Study Committee, to contact Evelyn at Town Hall.
But at the same time, why don't we just ask them to get in touch with the Economic Development Committee and start working on the project?
The best way to do that, because we don't have a chair of that committee.
Well, Matt McCormick is on it. We could just ask Matt to try to call the people together.
Well,
Yeah, there's 2 months out for getting their results, so I would wait till their results come back. But I think you need to be clear as to what each committee's role is, and that
Right.
was the problem we had before. You need to
Exactly.
clearly define
Yeah, we appointed like 6 committees within like 2 weeks.
Right.
And they all had, and everyone thought they were in charge of something. So then people get normally frustrated and just call it a day, because they
Yeah.
found that they've been superseded by some other committee.
Yeah, and I think where economic development did take the initiative in getting this program going,
Yeah,
you'd want to at least coordinate things through them so that they don't feel
all of a sudden you're.
that we have been pushed aside, yeah.
That's
yeah.
true, that's a very good point.
In fact, maybe it could be done as a subset of the Economic Development Committee, the downtown committee is, be a subcommittee of it or something, I don't know. But,
Actually, it's not a bad idea, because I think the Economic Development Committee is dealing with industry, and, I mean, they're not just focused on the downtown, I mean, they're much,
The whole
much
town.
bigger umbrella. But if they did have the subcommittee perhaps under them,
Yeah.
then they could certainly work with them,
yeah, because I think
and they
Pat,
could coordinate everything.
Pat Casey has got a good handle on
Yep.
how to go about, doing these interviewing and whatnot. I think
They've done a lot.
he's pretty clever in that
Do we know when
regard.
they meet again?
I don't specifically. Do you know what their schedule is?
I don't know.
No.
No, they're on Thursdays, I think.
I think it's the first, might be the first Thursday of the month or something like that, second Thursday of the month.
On Thursdays, I know that.
Can you, I would be glad to go to that meeting and just see if that sounded like something they would be willing to do. Can you let me know when they meet again?
Yeah.
Okay. If that's okay with the board, and then, just bounce that idea to see if they can get the downtown study committee as a subcommittee,
Yep.
so everybody knows, address some of the issues you've raised, everybody knows what they're doing, they're working together.
And that's the biggest thing, yeah.
Okay. And I met today, a nice ceremony. Mark was there, Mike, with the Lieutenant Governor Polito that came out. Do you want to just explain a little bit
Sure.
on the plan, where we're going with that? One, I thought it was, just in general, was nice to see Lieutenant Governor come out. I believe this is the first time we've ever had a governor or lieutenant governor actually come to town hall. And both Lieutenant Governor Polito and Governor Baker were former selectmen themselves, and I at least feel that they understand what's going on in the, in the town. So it was, even symbolically, it was very nice that the lieutenant governor came out here. And then where do we go from here?
She announced today we are officially the 144th town she's visited and become a member of the Commonwealth Compact. The Commonwealth Compact initiative was actually the first executive order issued by Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito. And they asked towns to identify up to 3 areas that the towns wanted assistance from the state with. And as you remember, we chose transparency, citizen engagement, and capital planning. And at first, when the program was launched, we weren't sure if there would be funds tied to that. I'm pleased to report that they announced that they're providing $30,000 in capital planning money to us. They also announced, because we were one of the first towns to sign up, that there is money available for IT funding. So we're actually going to submit a grant application this week to do a full risk analysis after what happened to our system. We're doing a full risk analysis to make sure that it doesn't happen to us again.
Any ballpark figures what that would cost?
It's approximately $50,000. And that'll be a complete analysis of the school network, the town's network, and the police network, and training for all employees as to make sure it doesn't happen again. And actually, on a side note, I don't know if anybody saw, Hollywood Hospital in Hollywood, California was hit, and they're being held for $3.6 million in Bitcoin ransom. And they've had all of their patient records tied up and actually had to cancel all day-to-day operations of the hospital. So,
So it could be a lot worse.
I know, it's hard, I can't believe I'm actually saying we're lucky, but we were
really
luckier
lucky.
than they are.
Well, I think we're
in that
lucky we
situation.
have such a good IT department. I really got to give Owen and Carlos credit. They were here till 4:30 in the morning trying to get the files squared away, and
They were working 24/7 for the entire week,
Yeah.
and they were able to restore the network doing that without having to bring in outside consultants. Some of the other towns spent upwards of $40,000 or $50,000 to have consultants come in, and it took much longer to get their work back. Our IT department was dedicated in making sure we were down for as little as possible. And I have to thank the staff in the town hall who, came to work every day not knowing what it was going to be like or what mood the IT or I would be in. And they did a really good job, making sure we were, still up and running for the people who still come into town hall, which was nice. And they had a lot of patience, a lot more patience than I did, so, which was good.
Now, the Commonwealth Compact has is it 3-year?
It's 3 years. So at the end of 3 years, we will report back to the governor's administration the changes that we've made. And we've actually started to take those changes. We actually have a warrant article to doing a capital plan. And we're going to be able to reduce that request based on the Commonwealth providing 30,000 of it.
Great.
So we'll put that towards that 20-year plan that we were going to.
The 20-year capital plan, correct.
Excellent.
And then citizen engagement, I've been working with the school department on analyzing and identifying a new website vendor, and we've gone through a couple of different vendors that have come in and give presentations, and we've presented that to the capital budget committee. And then we've also been working with Mass IT on transparency and budgeting and some of the pitfalls that other towns are having. So we're working with them on that as well. So.
It's just it's a nice program, I think, and it's a nice effort I think the state's making with the towns. And I don't think we've seen that before.
It's the first time in memory where we've actually been asked what we think as local officials.
Right, it's
Usually
refreshing.
we're told what to do.
Yeah.
And they came and asked what would help, so. And it wasn't just money, it was ideas for changing the way we operate.
Yep.
And that
Stand up.
initially how the plan was that we would just have almost in-kind services from state departments and could put us in touch with other towns that were doing that. So having the money available to actually see that through implementation was a nice bonus.
And I think it was nice, too, and the lieutenant governor made the point that the governor has assigned her to be kind of the liaison with the communities, that if there is something, at least we know there's someone you can contact, and she can then put you to whatever department that, needs to help you. So much appreciated on their efforts. And the last thing I think was just kind of interesting because we're talking about becoming a green community, and in the Beacon, it lists a number of communities that just came in, 19 new green communities, and several of those are right around us. Cohasset, and they got $141,000. Holliston, $147,000. Millis, $151,000. Stoughton, $209,000. Stowe, $144,000. So a number of communities that continue to add to the green communities, which is going to be an article that the townspeople will be deciding at town meeting. Mike, anything else?
No, just to caution people, and I've talked to Ken today, the roads are scheduled to freeze up tonight, and so be very careful when you come out in the morning, because even though the snow seems to have melted with all this rain and the roads being so cold.
Nothing's worse than that black ice, right?
Yes, yeah, so it's tough, and I know the highway guys will be out trying to get the roads set up, but sometimes when it gets that cold, it's hard for them to thaw out that quickly, so people need to be very cautious in the morning.
Just to piggyback, I think that they did a very good job under very difficult circumstances on that Friday storm that was heavy and wet, and branches and trees were down, of getting everything plowed and opened, and just a nice job. As well did our fire and police that had to respond to the number of outages that took place there.
Yes.
Clearing the streets, and there's some huge trees across Farm Street and other streets that have power lines down, and
Saturday working like dogs right now.
they did a nice job, I thought, on
Yeah.
that, so thank you. Anything else? Good. Pete, not too?
Nope.
Motion to adjourn.
Great.
Thank you.
You're watching Medfield TV, community shows.